I had no idea of the topic of our podcast until just a few moments with the person I interviewed in this podcast. Last year, when I booked Claire Terry from the incredible and iconic Wellington retail business, Madam Fancy Pants, to come on the show, it was all about brand voice and social media and marketing. And on the morning of the podcast recording and the day after New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern's shock resignation, Claire and I chatted on the phone just before. She had news and she thought maybe I might not want to have her on the podcast at all. Claire had watched Jacinda's speech and had also wondered about the timing of that. She had completed a press release that was due to go out just after our podcast recording that echoed much of what Jacinda Ardern had said around there being nothing left in the tank and that had to change. Madam Fancy Pants is a firm favourite for thousands of Kiwis, both in-store and online. And Claire announced the 20th of January that she had made the very difficult decision to close her flagship store in Cuba Street after having a shop in Wellington since 2006. While she's still running a store in Greytown, and it's beautiful, and her online store, this was a huge decision and change for Claire and her team. Claire was open to share with me and you her journey to this decision point, why it was this positive change and a positive choice rather than a forced decision, and how important that is for us as small business owners to keep that power, and what she's hoping to discover and jump into once the store closes in February. I've talked to a lot of small business owners who've come into 2023 tired, not quite 2023. Some feel they need to make a change to shut off part of their business or step away completely. A business evolves and changes over its lifetime, and if you're in a waiting place, finding business hard, or want to check in with what the warning signs could be, this podcast is very much for you. And I want to say thank you to Claire. Her generosity in sharing this story really touched me, and I hope you also love her honesty as much as I did. Welcome! This is Muppet Marketing and I'm your host, Rachel Klaver. I love helping small business owners become more confident and more capable with their marketing. So this podcast is all here to help you do just that. It's me and the help of some great guests helping you learn new skills, new strategies and ideas. Let's jump in and get started. Hi, and welcome to the Muppet Marketing podcast. I am your host, Rachel Klaver, and we've got an amazing guest today, Claire Terry. She is the owner of Madam Fancy Pants, and it is a store that I absolutely adore. Just the brand, the whole brand is just absolutely delightful. It is a Wellington region-based business. Now, Claire and I had a plan for today, which we have taken AWOL, which is my favorite way of having a podcast. Let's be honest. I always like running things as a change. We were originally going to talk about, and we'll probably touch on anyway, about the branding and getting that voice and consistency. I love Madam Fancy Pants socials. We'll link to them so that you can see they will still be awesome with some of the stuff we're going to talk about today. But we did a bit of a pivot, and it's a perfect pivot, I think, or the timing. This podcast will be coming out in a few weeks' time. I've just bumped it a little bit closer, but it is the day after Jacinda Ardern announced her resignation as Prime Minister of New Zealand. And some of the things that she said in her speech, to me, really hit a bone on how a chord of how I was feeling 4 or 5 years ago in the business. And literally, this is the first year in 3 years that I have not started the year exhausted. And I know a lot of small business owners I'm talking to are at breaking points, trying to decide whether they'll stay in the business or not. And then when Claire and I were talking briefly before the podcast in a call, Claire said that today she has got a press release coming out, and I'll get her to explain that, which indicates a change that's coming from Madam Fancy Pants that is an echo a little bit of the story of the journey that Jacinda has been going through. Sorry, Jacinda, I know we have met personally, but I do feel it's a little bit rude to call the Prime Minister by the first name. But anyway, but hey, Jacinda, if you're listening, but I think I really wanted to talk about this because I posted this in the Facebook group, a little bit of the excerpt from Jacinda's speech, and so many business owners in there said, this is how I feel. I am thinking about what I need to do. How do I need to change this business so that I'm not exhausted all the time? And so Claire and I agreed, thankfully Claire agreed, that we'd talk about this instead, because I think it's a powerful message. So with all that vague booking that I've just done, Claire, do you want to start by just introducing yourself to everyone and what Madam Fancy Pants is, and who you are?
Yeah,
and welcome, by the way.
Kia ora, morena. Thank you, Namahi, so much for having me here to share our story, Rachel. So thank you, and thank you for the flexibility as a person to pivot into the discussion that we'll move into today. So my name is Claire Terry, and I own a business called Madam Fancy Pants, a retail store. She first started all the way up the top of Plymouth Steps in 2006. And then after a short while, I realized that people were okay with walking up 100 million steps, but they didn't love it.
It's not best to come sweaty into a shop where you're going to put clothes on. Yeah. I think that's the key, right?
Yeah, like, here's a glass of water, have a seat, pull yourself together. And then, once you've just regained your blood pressure and everything's okay, then you can have a look around. So then we moved. I was like, maybe it'd be nice to move down 100 or so steps. And we moved down to the space in Cuba Street 217, which was our first home for 10 years. And then we kind of, grew and changed. And I was like, oh, this shop is feeling a little tight. Would be nice to be a little bit bigger. And then the store just happened to come available 2 doors up. And that's where we've been since. And then also at the beginning of the pandemic, during the first lockdown, I took on a space in Greytown to help.
Good timing.
Yeah, I was like, you know what? I was like, this is like my Broadway. If I can make it here, I can make it anywhere.
Can I just, before sorry to interrupt it, but I think it's really interesting because I was talking to I've talked to many business owners in the last few years, but I think it's really interesting. There was a beginning energy in 2020 of people stepping out into stuff and launching things. And then because it happened to us too, we just launched into Australia and it was like moving forward. I had speaking gigs there and then it's like this weird thing that we had this new fresh energy and then suddenly pandemic.
Yeah, definitely. And I think there was a moment where you're like, maybe I've got time during this initial pandemic moment to do things. And maybe this is going to give me space to do things. But then it just went on.
Yes.
And everyone lost
thing got old. The space thing got old
pretty quick. Yeah, it got old pretty quick.
With children at home all the time.
Oh yeah.
And I love my husband, work with him, and the husband at home all the time. Yeah.
I had people like retired people being like, I've just been gardening. And I was like, oh, I'm so happy for you.
Yeah.
I'm so sad for me.
That's so ripped off, but that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, we've been there since, and of course we have our online presence, which we've had since I think I opened the website a couple of years after 2006. So we've had the website.
It's a long time to have that online.
Yeah, as soon as I could, I was like, that's something we should do.
Now, again, I'm going to interrupt you because I bought not many things because my size has been shifting, but I do buy a few things when it's in the sale because then I'm like, if I only wear it for a few months, I can justify it. It will change once I'm more stable in my size. But I will just tell people that you are one of my favorite places to order from, not just because the website's great, but I have a personal love of feeling like you matter to the person that you've bought from, and you do all that stuff right. You do your automated emails are very personable. They feel like you're talking directly to me. And I know we weren't talking about this today, but I want to mention it because I think it's really beautiful. And you get a card and it's handwritten on the card, with a little comment, and I feel so valued. I feel like, Claire, I'm actually Claire's best friend today. I literally feel that way. Like I'm just like, I love it. Never met her in person, but I actually know her best friend. It's wrapped. And I know that's not perfect for the environment, people, but I like to have a present. If I've bought something on the internet, I want to feel like it's a gift. And the whole process is delightful, and you do e-commerce super well, which I'm also partly saying because I know this is going to be very important later for you. So, I think you do that e-commerce side amazingly beautifully well.
Oh, thank you. But it's such a huge part. If you're going to do it, do it well, and make it a part of that thing, because I want all our customers all over New Zealand or internationally sometimes to feel like, oh, this is what it could be like if I came into the store, They see me, they recognize me, I'm like, has this person come in before? I'm like, it's nice to see you again, it's thank you for coming into our little slice of the internet. It's a huge internet out there. So thank you for finding us, because you didn't have to. And so that's really special that you chose me. And all I can think of is what's his name in Simpsons? Choose you. Choose me. Oh, thank you. And
That's so
really,
cute. Yeah, I
it
think
never
it's like
stops being a
a bit
happy
of mutual
dance.
love, right? Like you just want to feel
Mm.
a bit of mutual love.
It should be, and
Yeah.
that's what it should be. I think that kind of respect between you choosing us as a customer and us being like, I see that, I recognize that, and I want this to be special for you. Even if you're just gifting for yourself, I'm like, I want it to be like, oh, this is exciting. What's happening here?
I've got a very funny story, which I don't think I've ever told on this podcast. We had a client once who sold these medicinal socks. So very, very expensive. I can't tell you what they are because it would be really bad, but years ago. But they were $50 each. Like these socks were expensive socks.
Mm,
And one of my team bought a pair for all of her male family members. So she had like bought 4 pairs. He
yeah.
wanted to save on postage. So he took all the wrapping and all the stuff off them, the brand, like any of the stuff on them, and then rolled them tightly. So they're $50 each. So she spent $200 on 4 pairs of socks.
That's a
And
lot for
so,
socks,
yeah,
you
it's a
know?
lot for
Yeah,
socks. And
it's a lot
so
for
he
socks.
took all the packaging off and undid everything and then rolled them really tightly and squished them into the smallest post bag he could. No note, nothing, and sent
Mm,
it to her. And couldn't understand why she'd be a little bit upset that she hadn't quite got the luxe experience that she was
mm,
expecting for $50 socks. And I
yeah.
think it's a really good way of going. You know, there are you need to think if you're coming to a store that's like yours, which has got beautiful clothes, beautiful stationery, and all those lovely, delectable things, you do want to feel like you've had that experience.
100%.
Yeah.
And that's it. You should be opening up. I mean, if I had my way, if I could Wonka vision things or something, like I'd open up and I'd be like, welcome to me, little poo, like,
Yeah.
wow, thank you, like kind of,
Lavender and
what's that? Like
tea.
the only the best scene in Love Actually is the Mr.
Yes.
Bean, Ron Atkinson, like that. If I could just do that for every
Yes.
single customer, I would just be so happy,
Yes. Yeah, that's right. No, I
I've got
love
to
that.
balance. I got to balance the eco with the thought and all these kinds of things. So
Yeah, so you're in Greytown, aren't you? Is that right, Greytown?
yeah,
Right,
the
yeah.
second
So
building.
you've got, and you call it, I can't say this word, atelier? Is that how you say it? Atelier.
Oh, that's atelier.
Atelier.
Which just means workshop. So if I say
Okay, cool.
atelier
It's a
workshop,
much
it's just
fancier way of
workshop.
saying it. I always go,
It's just
I
a
need to go to
fancy
an atelier. Uh,
Yeah, it's just a fancy word for. It's just I think it's like a French or European word for workshop.
I
And
don't
I was
want to
like,
go to a
what do you
workshop.
call
I
it?
want to go to an atelier.
I know
I
exactly.
mainly want to spend more money because it's in an atelier. So you have like a shop space and then like a little atelier. Is that right?
Yes, yeah. Which
And
is
is
great.
that without trying to like DOS, is it DOSing on the internet? You live in that area, so that's kind of closer to where
Yeah,
you live. So for going into Cuba Street, it's going across all that
the
stuff,
hill, the
the
great
hills.
Rambler.
Yeah, we did it once and we got caught in like a traffic jam, and I was like, this is not a pleasant experience. So that would have been like all of that stuff. So in the pandemic, if you're living out there and then there's all this stuff happening in Cuba Street, and it's kind of like being almost cut off from one of your babies.
Yeah, 100%. Because we couldn't even during the pandemic. If I lived over in Wellington, I probably could have just nipped into the store because it's close by. It would have been fine, but I couldn't do any of that. It was just
Yeah.
a ghost because we couldn't go in there.
And obviously lockdowns and stuff, like Wellington has been one of the things with Wellington is because of all of the government workers, people who work in government, and all the other people, it's
Please.
been always been a very condensed city. Like my kids live there or want to live there. One of them already does, one's about to. And it's a very condensed city. You can walk everywhere, but
Mm.
it became quite a ghost town for quite a long time, eh? Like people were opting to work from home even when they didn't have to. So what was the impact for Cuba Street?
It was huge. It was
Yeah.
just a sad space. It really, really was. And I think that because we're so used to seeing Cuba Street as this bustling,
Yeah, it's
thriving,
vibrant.
creative vibe, just all these things, and all of a sudden to see it just desolate somewhat. Like, when you think about like a desert and you see the rolly weedy things, you're just like wah 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 wah.
Yeah.
So it just felt like that. It just felt like it had just lost a lot, and especially, and I think it really actually even intensified when we had the protests. That was really like that was a Wellington vibe thing. People were like, oh, it's just around where the government was in the Beehive, and it wasn't, because that's the entrance to the city. That's the beginning of Wellington. And if people see that, they're like, with any kind of obstacle, people see an obstacle and go, no,
yeah,
don't want
this is true.
no. And so they kind of think, oh, that's right by the train station. I don't think I'm going to be going into it. It was really huge. And that flow-on effect was it was long. It wasn't just February. It was months and months afterwards. So yeah, it was a really, really tricky time for so many businesses. So many. Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about what you have sent out today, a press release you've sent out today, and then we might talk a little bit about kind of the processes that have led to that a bit, without getting you too down. Let me know if you need
a open book.
But so you sent a press release today about Madam Fancy Pants. What's it say essentially?
It essentially says pretty much what Jacinda just said yesterday, but on a kind of more positive note, I guess. I've kind of basically
take notes from her speech there.
I was wondering, I was like, well, was she taking notes? Was she in my emails? Because we just said some very similar things, we just aligned, her and I.
That's funny.
She's the leader of 5 million, I'm the leader of 5,
It's the same thing. You're both in Wellington. You both commute to Wellington.
We're basically soul sisters.
You both have children.
I know. We actually, our children, Neve and my son, are pretty much almost the same age exactly.
There we
so
go.
I felt like I was like, oh, when she was on, I'm going to be the Prime Minister, I'm having a baby, and I was like, how I can really do this together.
I've had a couple of little chats to her, because I was connected to her long before she became Prime Minister, and so I'm one of the few people she still follows on Instagram. Should I say this? Anyway, occasionally I go for a night. I'm locked out of my Instagram, so I can't do that this time around. I think that out of all the things I've probably ever said to her, mainly have been about that thing. I was a working mum with 3 kids, a single mum. I have so much admiration for her, and it's really hard, because I think when you're a mum and a woman, you sometimes think, do I have to be judged on this? Can't I just be a business owner? But there is a thing about having to make a conscious choice to go, I'm going to choose to do this thing. And I used to travel a lot for work, and I would just walk out the door and go, they're in God's hands now. They're in the nanny's hands, or they're in the carer's hands. And I didn't want to be talked to about parenting stuff while I was traveling, because I'm like, I'm in my business zone now. So I can understand cutting that and doing that. And then, but I'd have to come back, and I'd come back, and one of them would be throwing a temper tantrum or something like that. And I'd be like, well, that whole speaking gig I had where everyone was clapping at me does not feel like the same person that's trying to deal with the temper tantrum right
No,
now.
totally.
It's hard.
It is really hard, because you want to be like, oh, I'm business, I'm doing this, but I'm like, but I am also a mother, and I have these people, these little people that are wanting me and needing me, and trying to separate the two is really difficult.
It is hard. It's hard. And we can go, oh, well, what about like dads who work? It is still so culturally different. And we are judged so differently.
Yeah.
Like a good dad is the one that comes and makes dinner once a week. And you're a crappy mum if you get a takeaway because you're tired. Like, it's just this kind of crazy.
Yeah, but it doesn't change. I mean, I think I remember Tammy Nielsen, when she was on one of her tours last year, or maybe a couple of years ago, someone actually asked her where her children were. And you're like, are you effing
you can use the word. You can wear the word.
Like, I was like, I just read that, and I was like, I went from zero to fume. I was like, oh no, you didn't. Like, I literally couldn't even. I was just like, I was so furious for her.
Yeah, no, it's a hard thing. Anyway, I got you sidetracked. So you did a Jacinda type press release today, and what's the snapshot of it?
So basically, it's a Madam Fancy Pants Cuba Street is closing its doors late February after almost 17 years in Wellington.
It's a huge, huge thing.
Yeah. So it's pretty big. And saying it, like with any relationship, like personal relationship or business relationship, it's not something that you take on lightly. Like I think about the decisions over the last few years that I've been thinking on it and thinking and going no and yes and what if and how and what, and, what does this look like? What does that look like? And then when Jacinda announced, I was like, she has been thinking on this for years. probably since she had her baby.
Yeah.
Like it's been a decision that's been weighing on her shoulders, just like any person that has these big decisions to make. You're like, it's not just like you wake up one day and go, I don't feel like doing that anymore. That's it.
Yeah. It is.
So yeah.
I think that is, we talked briefly beforehand, and there's some stuff we won't talk about here because when there's a closing of a store or a business or a change in a business, there's stuff that you can't talk about because it involves other people. And so we're just going to keep off those things. But I think that one of the things I learned when we went through this six or 7 years ago, whenever it was that it looks like it's an out of the blue decision, but it's because a business owner will have the 3 a.m. wake ups for months on end with the panic and the thinking things through and trying to try something and going, how far will I go? Like I know for me and Rod, our thing was we will not lose our house. That was our rule. We will not lose our house. Well, we got down, I think I said to you, to like $15,000 of our revolving credit, which was significant revolving credit left in it. And I was like, we have to make decisions now. And I haven't shared this, but the day that I caught him ringing up, because we went to the bank and they said they wouldn't give us money because we went, to extend stuff. And that he was ringing like a third tier,
the scary people.
Yeah, like a scary person. Also,
25%
not a second tier, but like
for
like a loan.
Yeah.
And I was like, I heard him on the phone and I was like, nope, this is it. I'm not doing this. I am not risking everything for a business that's got a model that's broken for us now.
Yeah, I totally hear it. And I feel the same way. Like that's one of the big decisions was last year. I've never had to, I may not have always paid myself the best, but I've never had to put money, my own personal money into the business.
Yeah.
And I've always really held my head high about like,
that's a really powerful thing for retail. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I've maybe only paid myself half of minimum wage or, like maybe I didn't pay myself.
Maybe that's going to change. We're going to change
that. But I've never had to reverse money back into the business. And that's last year I had to do a significant amount of that. And my accountant said, this is what you're down. And that's why you had to do this. And I was like, oh, so it's not me just making it up. It was actually like, this is a situation. And I was like,
you just going, maybe I've been overspending a little bit.
No, it's not.
Because sometimes we can feel that way when we're in the treadmill. We're like, oh, it's not the business's fault. This is obviously my fault for mismanaging things. And then you don't see that actually the sales are really down, but I just don't want to, because I think when we're stressed, we don't want to look at it. It's like, that's not an option. I'm not even looking at it.
Yeah. And it's too hard. It's it's a very confronting thing to do, to look at. But in a quick pivot side note, I am working with my accountant on the profit first kind of model.
Which I love that. Yeah, we love
it. Oh my goodness. I wish if I could give any potential business owner about to move into business right now, if I could go back and tell 17 years ago, Claire, this is what you should do. I think, things may not have looked different, but I feel like I would have felt more confident with my money and the management.
I think it makes you make better decisions, and it helps you pull the plug a little bit earlier. I will tell you that the first time I read it, I was on holiday in Fiji, and the business was before the rock bottom. And I had someone who was at the end of their contract, and wasn't really, she'd been on a temporary contract, and she wasn't really in the zone with what we were doing, and we didn't need her. She was extra. And so I told everyone that I was not going to renew her contract. And I hated being the mean person. She walked into the meeting and came out with a pay rise and an extended contract. I had such poor boundaries around this stuff. But Profit First turned everything around for us. And I'll recommend to you Fix This Next by Mike Michalowicz as well.
Yes.
But I agree with you. It's good to have an accountant who can support you in that. Really good.
Yeah. She's amazing. My accountant is she's
so you're closing Cuba Street, and when does that happen?
That's going to be happening. Our last trading day there will be the 23rd, Thursday, the 23rd of February.
So that's soon.
Just a month and a bit away. And I had actually brought it forward a little bit because for other reasons, for staffing, and there's a few other things in mind there. But I was like, this feels right. I feel like that's a good time to be able to do it. That's achievable. It's quite soon, but I can work towards that. And I think that it's just going to I can see the space afterwards.
Yes.
I can see the space that I'm going to have.
And the breathing and the head.
all in my
Yeah.
personal, like, physical, my inner self, my physical space, and my business space, my I can just see the space that I'm going to have to work on things differently.
Because we've talked privately, sorry to bring a private conversation, but we've talked privately on Instagram about like that feeling of health and wellness as a business owner and how hard it is to get that balance right, especially when you're mum and you're a business owner and you've got a thing around. I do think that we often underestimate the sheer toll having a business has on our health, not just our mental health, but just the mental health means that we don't have space in our heads to get the energy to do things for ourselves. Self-care goes out the window because you feel weird and funny about doing self-care when everything else feels like it's going down the ship, which is actually the time we should have it, right?
Which is actually the time I should be like, right, I'm just going to go for a walk, or I'm going to go to the gym,
Yes,
or
but
I'm
you
going to go
can't,
to Pilates, or I'm going to
the
do.
energy to do that.
Oh, you're scraping the barrel,
Yeah. And
you
it's
know.
and I think people who go, "Oh, you should just be like mindful." And I'm like, there is an energy to turn the ship around on your own self-care that when you have nothing in the tank, you
Mm.
literally don't have the energy to turn the steering wheel to
Pull
turn
that wheel
around.
around. You really
Yeah.
don't. Yeah, and that's where I'm getting to the point where I don't want the store, the Cuba Street store, to end up at a place where I'm on the train, and I'm on the train. I don't want to
Mhm.
become the mayor of Resentville. You know,
Yes, that's a good line.
I just don't want to become. I'm on the train. I'm like, duh, 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 over to the, oh, I can see it ahead. Oh,
Yeah.
I'll share this. I said, so to one of my store manager in Cuba Street, I got COVID like 2 days before Christmas, just before about to go on this
Awesome.
organized holiday, and it was like it just mucked up. It was so many people have this happen, but I was so looking forward to this break with some friends and reading my books. I had 6 books that I'd got up from the library. I was so excited, and then I was like, boom, COVID, and then. So I was sick for quite some time. And then we got back to work, and my store manager started back, and she messaged me at the end of her first day back, and she's like, "Oh, I've got COVID." And I was just, and I've talked about this, and I've kind of joked with her. I was like, and I got really angry, and I was like,
Mm.
why didn't you get COVID at the beginning of your holiday? Like, what's blah blah blah, moo boo hoo hoo, why didn't you get it? Freaking this, freaking that. And then I was like, that's not cool, Claire. She didn't intend to she
No.
doesn't want COVID. It's not like she wants to be sick. And I was like, you're making the right decision,
Yeah.
you know, because I was like, if
Yeah.
that's how I'm feeling, where I'm just like angry because someone gets sick, and
Mm.
because I have to cover, I have to change all my plans, and I have
Yes.
to, you
Yeah,
know,
and you're having to, because I've got a couple of clients that are in retail, and I've had this conversation a lot with them where they're trying to work out, is this good for me to stay in it? Even ones where it's even with retail where the business is actually thriving, where there isn't a
mm,
financial reason, where the business is actually totally thriving and they're still meeting budget, like even those ones, and there's not that many of those in retail at the moment, like retail's
mm,
hard.
yeah,
um, their last year for them was harder than the other years because you have that constant I'm away for COVID. And I think we found this last year. Our business, it relies on the business owner to have the headspace to work with us. And
exactly.
last year, no one had that because they either couldn't get staff or their staff were constantly sick. And so they constantly had to close or do things and they were having to jump in and be in the business.
Yeah, instead of
And
on the business. Yeah.
yeah, and this year it's been really interesting. We're 3 or 4 weeks in, and the leads are coming through. People are ready. They've got more. Some of those people have more energy. But I know it's just going to take another wash for
Mm,
those people to go, oh no, I can't do that again. Every business is still being impacted by COVID.
totally. And
But
it's
retail, man,
retail and hospitality, those
yeah,
service-based,
those service-based ones.
and that's what I thought. I kind of went, one of my thought process was, if this winter and this year is like last year,
You're too far
I will
gone.
I will lose my mind. I
Yeah,
will actually become just a shell of myself, and I'm no good to anybody.
yeah,
No good to myself, no good to my family, no good to my team, no good to my friends,
yeah.
the whole kit caboodle. I was like, if it is, and I'm like, I am not prepared to take that risk,
Mm.
I just can't.
So I
Yeah.
really want to make this super clear because you're not closing your business, you're just
No.
closing a store.
Yes. So we
And you're evolving the business.
yeah.
You are evolving the business and you are taking some of the things that work better with who you are and your needs and stuff like that. So what will Madam Fancy Pants look like
So
once Cuba Street's gone?
Yeah, so it's really good, and I think I feel quite positive about the space that I'm going to be in. So having the Greytown store, which is close to where I live, it's
Mm.
smaller. It kind of I When I opened the store, I thought, because it's quite a tiny little town. I'm not sure if you've been there. It's quite
Yeah,
cute.
it's gorgeous little
Holiday.
town.
And it kind of sometimes it's annoying that things close early, but I was like, if I'm going to open a second store that I'm physically in more, I want to have the hours that work for me and
Yeah.
my family. And so we have a lot shorter hours there. Wellington, it's kind of not acceptable to be
No.
not open outside of 10 and 6. If you're closed
Yes.
in those hours, then you're done. What are you doing?
Yeah.
But yeah, we're open quite short hours, and they kind of work with my family schedule, and it just
Mm.
works a little bit better for us and me. And I think that's something that working through Dr. Rebecca Ray's Setting Boundaries book has really been helping with. That actually, my business is not a public. It's not a public business. It's for
Yeah.
the public, but I own it as a bit, and I get to set
Gosh.
my own
I
boundaries.
really like that because it's funny I got into an argument with someone on the internet. She was talking about how retailers shouldn't set their own boundaries because they should just be available to everyone. And she's like, I'm available to everyone all the time. And I was like,
Should
it's
you be
not
doing?
your business, it's their
No.
business. If they can work profitably and in the hours they suit, I think
Mm,
it's the same as me. I only have 2 client facing days a week. And I
mm,
was saying to someone the other day, if someone says to me, "Oh, no, I can only come on a Friday," I'll be like, "Well, that's not a day I work."
mm, mm.
And then they'll go, "Okay, I'll book in on the Wednesday."
Yeah, yeah,
You know,
and it
like,
is. It's so important, I think, and because I had a customer, it was a day. Usually, I can water off a duck's back people's
mm,
comments or things that happen in store, but this one day, this woman came in and was just like, "You're never open." In the Greytown stores, "You're never open when I'm here."
she was literally there though, right?
And she was there that
Yeah,
day, and I
yeah.
was like, "You're here now." And she was like, I was like, "Oh, well, our hours are on our website. They're on Google. We're very clear. They're on our door. We're very open with the hours that we're open." And she's like, "No, but you're not open the hours that I want you to be." And I said, "Well, actually, staffing is quite difficult right now. We're looking for staff.
Mm,
I have a family. We can't just be open willy-nilly all the time." And also, I've recognized as well the hours that work for us to just be open. Like, there's no point in me
yeah.
being open till 6 p.m. because
No.
no one's shopping till 6 p.m. in
No,
Greytown.
no, because they're going home and having time they're there because
Yeah.
they wanna be with their family.
Yeah, and to be honest, I would maybe I'm just like ranty and old now, but I think maybe we should go back to being closed on Sundays.
Oh,
Everyone,
no, I quite
good old
like it.
80s New Zealand.
I feel like I remember when I'm so old, I am 51. I remember when Saturday morning shopping came in. It wasn't
Yeah,
even the whole Saturday, it was
yeah, it was
Saturday
just till
morning.
midday.
Yeah, and then I remember the uproar when Sunday
Mm,
shopping came in. Like, churches were like, "This is the end of New Zealand. This is not gonna be okay." But yeah, do I get frustrating sometimes when a shop's not open? Sometimes I do, but you know what? You it's not our it makes me kind of want it more. It's like playing a little
mm.
bit hard to get. That's the way I see it.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
not
and
a hospital. It's not like it's not police, there are things that need to be open
yes.
for all hours, and there are
Yeah.
things that don't. And I'm like, maybe as a people, we've kind of become too used to the convenience of things. And I mean, and which is tricky because I'm like, at the end of the day, most places, retail places, have an online presence. And if you really want it, pop it online, pick it up the next
Yeah.
day, and yeah, it's tricky because I think that people need to have that space, and I think that allowing yourself to be like, actually, this works for me, and this works for my family, and I'm sorry it doesn't work for you, but these are the boundaries that we need to be setting within ourselves.
I love it. You are not just doing Greytown, you're also keeping online.
Yes, so we're keeping online. I like to think, and like we were talking about before, I really enjoy the online side of things. I really enjoy, I've come around, I have a love hate with social media, but generally speaking, when I'm in a good space, I'm like, social media is fun. It should be fun. It should
Mm,
be about sharing and connecting, and it should be real as well. I think that's one thing that I try to
yes.
focus on social media. Is like, I don't look amazing, but I'm going to get on. You need to see how I look. I'm like, yeah, I'm wearing a cute dress, but my hair looks like shit because my child was
Oh,
whatever
your
last
hair looks
night,
great. Your hair looks great. But
you know?
I think it is really important. I have this conversation a lot with business owners where I'm like, Like I'm worse. Like my hair is barely done today and I am still tired. I was in Christchurch this week, so I'm still tired from that. So I feel like I've got very baggy eyes today. And I will rock up. Like you'll see my Instagram stories. I've got ones where I'm like wearing a gym t-shirt, like, and I'm like,
Just
and
do it.
it just, and
Get out
if I waited until I looked good enough, I literally would do one post a month because that's
there.
pretty much the day I put makeup on,
Yeah.
and do my hair properly. And if I did that, it would be a nightmare. It really would. And I've rocked
Mm.
up today with you without any makeup. So if I only did the videos with makeup, I'm in deep trouble every time I
Totally.
do something with a client.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it's the whole social media side of things. It should be for me and my business. I'm like, I
Mhm.
want it to be real. I want our customers to see who we are, that it's okay to be who you are, because we're being who we are as well. And also just just the ability to be yourself. And I think
Yeah.
it's just so very important that it's not a space where young people specifically keep seeing these prime pristine faces and this that,
Yeah,
and that's okay for them if that's what they want to
yeah.
do. You do you, but I think having a balance at that of representation, and
Mm,
I'm not very I'm very white, I'm very woman, I'm very these things, but I'm like, this is still me, and there are a lot of people who resonate with me,
mm.
um, and I think that's really
Can
important.
I want to ask you a question about the practicality around online and just I've got questions. But before we do that, I will just say one of the things I've really loved about Madam Fancy Pants and say to other people, including, with my girls who are all Generation Z, two of which are, in the LGBTQ community.
Mm,
One of the things I have really valued from watching you as a business owner is that you do use your platform to show that you're an ally, that you're very clear that you're an ally. And I didn't understand the importance of that until my girls started talking about how important it was for them to have people be an
mm,
ally.
mm,
Using your pronouns to show that it's okay to share our pronouns so that other people can show them and feel like, okay, understanding like that your place is a safe place for people wherever they are on the gender spectrum, and understanding that if they're non-binary, they're going to feel like it's a safe place in your stores
mm.
or buying from you. Was that a conscious decision? I know this is a big topic, but was that
Mm,
a conscious decision for you that that was really important?
yeah, yeah, it is. It was a conscious decision. And I think that it kind of harks back with everything within your business. Depending on your business and who you are, you'll hear some Lego. Excuse that, that's my
That's good, good, good.
stuff.
There goes good.
Um, it's got to be value based, and people are like, oh, keep your personal out of your business. It's like you can't,
No, you can't.
you can't. So as a small business owner, maybe it's easier when you've got millions of businesses or something. But as
Mm.
a small business owner, I was like, these values, people have to know who I am and
Yeah.
who I support to buy from me. They have to know that these are the things that I value.
Mm.
These are the charities or the people that I support in my
Mm.
own personal life, and who your money, if you purchase from me,
It's going to go.
potentially
Yeah.
go to. And it goes back to me. I was very lucky when I was very, very young to be introduced to the LGBTQI scene through my father's friends, and I met the most amazing queer couple who were just beautiful, and I was like, wow, these people are amazing. And then I never questioned it since. It was like, it is what it is. And I've had various best friends, and one of my best friends are gay, and they're fantastic. And I think I can't imagine anything worse than not supporting them
Yeah.
through my business as well, because they are not a minority, but they are a group of people who have
Still don't
been.
have equity in New
No, there's
Zealand
not equity there,
or
and
anywhere really. Yeah.
yeah, and if I can do something, I want to do something, and I'm still learning.
Yeah.
That's not to say
Me
that
too.
I
I'm learning.
you know?
I am a different a generation Xer, where when I was at university, that's when gay not even gay marriage, but like just literally
Mm,
being gay was legalized. So
yeah,
I often
yeah.
have to say to the girls, hang on a minute, you've just said something and I need to shift. And I'll just say, before I do ask about the e-commerce side. The only hate mail I've ever had from this podcast is when I did the podcast with Thunderpants about them de-gendering their website. And
Mm,
I got so much hate mail, which is just a sign of why it is really important to be in LA, I think.
And Sophie from Thunderpants is amazing. So
she is. Yeah, you guys are quite close. Like,
yeah, she pops in. We pop in.
Awesome. So I have a question because I'm curious. And let me know if I overstep. But will you have to reduce your range if you're moving out of Cuba Street? Like, where are you going to put everything? Like, don't specifically where you're going to put everything, but are you going to have like a 3PL, like somewhere to distribute the stuff for you? Are you going to still pick and pack yourself or get support? Like, how's it? Have you worked out how it's going to work yet?
Yeah, totally. So it'll all still be done 100% in the store. Everything we packed lovingly by me and Anna and one of our new team that's about to come on, and we'll have everything there. So we're moving some things around. I'm going to be with the closure of Cuba Street. I'm looking at the fit out that I've got there, what I'm going to move and what I'm going to keep and sell and all that kind of stuff. Because I'm like I love the things that I've brought there, so I want to see how I can utilize them again.
Makes sense.
I hate wastage as well. I'm like, yes, my drawer is filled with plastic bags that I can reuse. And how can I reuse this and use this in the space and redo that so it works and functions better? And I guess we're always looking to make things better. So this is part of that kind of that evolution of Madam Fancy Pants too. This is going to be closing, but because that's closing, Greytown is going to be better, and there are some brands that we won't be able to take over with us because they've already got representation over there, which is perfectly fine.
But you've always had that in Greytown, right? Like, but it's just online. Yeah.
It's a small town. You can't, and it comes down to, there are so many brands out there, and some of them I can't take, even though I love them. And I'm like, that's really sad. But if they ever pivot and change or do something, then get in touch with me, but there are so many people doing amazing things out there. There's no sense or reason why one business owner should be pissy because another business owner has the same thing. It's like, there's lots of things out there, there's lots of different things. So we can always find something to fill that gap that you feel that brand, not saying that they're completely replaceable, but that there are so many things, there are so many designers doing amazing things out there. And there's always going to be those things that you see working with your aesthetic,
and you're going to always see what those things are. I've got a podcast coming out with Annalise from Tikiti Boo
we stock time
but I'm bumping her for this but sorry Annalise, but she went, I've known her for ages, and one of the things that I talked about with her is like she's always innovating with her artists and things for new products. So you're going to always have new artists and new things to bring in that would be a perfect fit for your aesthetic. So having to hold on to some things, and I guess in a fear or lack of growth mentality isn't really fitting this whole thing that you're doing. Because actually that's I was just thinking, what's interesting for me is that sometimes to have a growth mentality, this is a thing in my head, growth mentality, it involves shrinking.
Yeah,
because you're coming in this with a growth mentality. And I don't think it's a shrinking mentality.
No, it is, and it is about mindset, and I work through with all my years of toing and froing, and then decision. I was like, mindset is so important. I was like, in order to grow, I need to reduce.
Yeah.
And that's okay. And I think really focusing on the fact, for a while I was like, oh, boo-hoo me. I feel like I'm letting my team down. I feel like I'm letting Cuba Street down. I love Cuba Street. I was born in Wellington in Arrow Valley. I swam in the bucket fountain as a child. Got apparently a good immune system for it. And I love the area and I want to see it thrive so badly, and to be part of its story has been so special, and to feel like I'm now pulling out of that story does make me feel quite sad. But then I'm like, actually, you know what? I was there for this long. I was part of this journey for this long, and that's really special. And to not look back and go, what is it song? Don't Look Back in Anger or something by, I don't know, what's that? Someone. Anyway, one of those European groups. And I was like, I don't want to look back with sadness or anger. I want to look back and be like, that was really, really cool. And we had some amazing times, and I met some incredible customers who became beautiful friends and helped so many people, had so many amazing conversations, and felt like I was part of growing an area, I want to be part of the rising tide, floating the boats, recommending other stores, being an advocate for our city. And I can do that still in Greytown. You know, I can be that advocate there as well, and I can invest into the community there fully, which I'm really excited about. You know, it's really exciting.
One of the things that defined me or helped me make my decision feel better for me back when was I was talking to my friend Deb, and she said, you know, you've got customers, you attract customers with broken wings. I do. I often have people who need a little bit of like comforting and massaging, not physical massaging, that sounds weird, but like, you know, emotional massaging and business massaging. And she said, to do that well, you can't have a business that has a broken wing. You can't have people in your team that you're needing to go and jump in and fix. And there weren't, at that time, there weren't that many, but I had been that person who always liked going, oh, that person needs a job and I'm going to help. And so I'd had that a little bit. But I think that that's the thing with business ownership. For you, for it to grow into the thing that's best for you, holding on to Cuba now would be holding on to a business with a broken wing. And feeling the responsibility of having to maintain Cuba and help Cuba build up again, Cuba Street build up again. But the cost to you, it is like Jacinda. It's like, where is that balance of I could do this and I could be that person and I could participate in this and it's an amazing privilege. And then the balance of that with this is actually inside killing me. I'm feeling like this is revolt. I'm starting to feel that thing. There is a balance.
Yeah, there has to be, you know, there really, really has to be, because, you know, as I was saying before, you're on the train to become the mayor of resentment. And I think that's the end place for so many businesses when it's gone too far. You've overstepped and you're in the space where you're just like, you can't do it anymore. And I remember when I was first setting up the business and setting up the stores, and I was like, when will I know when it's time to close? Like, what will be the signals? You know, everyone, you know, you think about these things, you're like, what will be the thing that will tell me you're done? And I remember at the time thinking, if some new wallpaper and like changing the shop around or this kind of thing, giving it a bit of a zhuzh doesn't fix it. You know, if I still come back, or I've kind of done the zhuzh and I come back and I'm feeling flat still, like that's a pretty good indication that something isn't on the trajectory I want it to be in. So yeah, like the holiday or the refresh isn't fixing it.
Yeah, because I do think a lot of people come into 2023 really tired. And I spent 2 years coming in really tired during the pandemic. And this is the first year I haven't. But I know it's because last year I actively stepped back and actually spent time, but I could do that without having, it did cost our business. We had to basically shut down my arm of the business to do that. And now I do feel really energized, but I think that if you can't do that with something functioning, you have to let go of that thing and be prepared for something to die, so that the business owner is the biggest asset the business has, no matter what. So you either have to look after yourself, or you have to remove the, you know, like you can't do it.
And that's that whole you know, put your mask on first. It comes down to that.
You can't. You have to put your mask on first.
Yeah. And I was like, I've got to put this mask on, because I'm not being the leader that I need to be for my team. Like, they're not going to step out of this if they leave the store, if they leave their employment. I'm like, I know within myself, I have not given them the experience and the journey that I want them to have. Like, I haven't given them, like, for the years experience that I've been learning and changing and growing myself. I'm like, I know that I could have taught them more and helped them more on their own, like, you know, working life journey. So, and I told, you know, my team the other day when we were talking, and I said, you know, I feel like I've let them down somewhat, because I just don't have it in myself for the last few years to do what I know I would like to do with them, you know, and I want them to grow in themselves, because they're young, you know. I'm like, I can see myself at your age, and I'm like, gosh, I kind of wish I had someone that just was nurturing me along the way and helping me grow and helping me learn, and, you know, not micromanaging, but just being there and present,
helping them blossom into who they were being. It's a privilege doing that as a boss. Like, it's
100%. Yeah, and that's what you want. You want people to leave your space and your employment feeling like, oh, I learned so much and I feel so much more like myself, and I feel like I've grown, and I feel like I've taken on from that journey. Because every you know, experience you have, you know, just adds to your melting pot of you, you know. Um, and I always want that person's experience to be really positive and feel like they've come
Mm.
out, you know, somewhat better,
Changed.
somewhat
Changed
changed.
them, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So with if someone else is listening to this and going, "Oh, I feel like I need something to shift and change in my business this year, but this sounds really scary and really big." What would you say to them? Like, what were some of the things that helped you make the decision? Were there some like moments that were a bit gut wrenching that you were like, "Oh, I didn't actually want to know that reality"? Like, did some of that help, or was it a mix of that and lots of reflective walking? Like, what helped you?
What helped me, I think, was knowing that I can do it. Like, which is a weird contradictory thing because you're like, I'm giving it up, I'm
Yeah.
stopping it, but I know I can do it.
So it was
Like,
a conscious decision as opposed to being in a situation maybe a year's time where there's
mm,
no option and you
there's no
literally have to do
options.
it. That's a different
Yeah,
experience. That would
yeah.
be like um Jacinda being ousted.
Yeah, exactly. She was
Yeah.
ousted, and she's like, "Oh, ma," and that would give you
And then
that.
I wanted to quit, so that was great. Like it's a
Yeah,
different experience.
exactly. And I think making, excuse me, um,
Sorry, Jacinda.
if you've been if you've been doing it, you've been giving you all, and you know that you can do it, but right now you just can't do it. You
Yes.
know. And so I know that in my head, and I've got some other amazing best friends who are in business, and we were just like, one who was actually just recently sold her business, and she was like, I know I can do it.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm sad, but I'm relieved because I know that should the time come, like in 5 years, and I go, you know what? I feel like having another shop on Cuba Street. I know
Mm.
I can do it. You know,
Yeah.
like I feel like the confidence where I'm like, I haven't completely top ended out. I've just
Mm.
made a conscious decision going, this is not right for me right now. I need to make some changes.
I
But
like
should
it.
the space be available for me to do that again, I
Mhm.
know I can do it, you
Because
know?
I think it's actually saying that even when everything feels out of control, we still have the ability to control our own decision-making process.
Mm,
And then
mm.
from that, that gives us the confidence that we can use all the way through.
Yeah, yeah, that's totally it. And if you've
Yeah.
started up a business and you've been doing it for however long and you're reaching like that psychological space where you're like, I'm not okay, it's not working for me anymore, it's not working for my family, and you go, not right now. I need to
Mhm.
either put a pin
I
in
love
it,
it.
stop it, pull back, because you can do it again,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know? And that's the thing, you can always do it again. You know,
Mm.
if you've not reached the point of no return where you've debt collecting and you're, you know, when it's gotten to
Yeah.
that
That
point where
is
you're
when it
like,
stops being a choice and it
that
starts
is
being really scary.
exactly, exactly. If you've not reached that point yet and you're in the kind of teetering around, like it's not feeling great,
Mm.
then you probably need to listen to that gut and be like, it's not great. Let's pull back and let's put a pin in it, whatever we need to do. And then if I feel like I've got space for it down the track, let's let that grow again. Yeah.
I've been saying on constant repeat to anyone that would listen to me this year, 'cause, you know, I've got a girl, one of my daughters is leaving home in a few weeks and she's terrified of change.
Mm.
And I have been, and one of them's last year of uni and she's terrified of, last year of school and she's terrified of change too. And I've been saying to them both and anyone else who'll listen, there are no wrong decisions. Like your
Mm.
other decision could have been, I'm going to do it again. I'm going to keep going with Cuba Street
Mm.
and I'm going to give it another go. And that also wouldn't have been a wrong decision if it's the one you felt that you were right. Like
Mm.
if you really went, no, I've got the thing in my tank. I can do this. That also wouldn't have been a wrong decision, potentially.
Mm.
I mean, you might have regretted it like it later on, like well, either way, you know, but I think for me, it's about finding the decision that sits right for you today with the
Mm.
life you have, the dreams you have. And then when you've made that decision, it opens up the door to a whole lot of other little decisions that happen and journeys. But
Mm.
unless you make a decision instead of just getting stuck in this like that waiting space in Dr. Seuss, you know, the waiting room, the
Oh, yeah.
decision is the thing that that brings you
Leave
forward.
it. Yeah,
Yeah,
that
you're not
leave it.
languishing
No,
anymore.
exactly. And I 100% feel like that. Like I was toying with the idea for so long and it just felt so heavy and hard and like breaking me, you know, so sad and all these things. And I was
Yeah.
like, I have to make a decision because this waiting room space, the space that I'm in is not, it's I can't carry on like this. It's draining me.
That
So
is the
when
thing
I
that's
made that
so
decision,
exhausting. Yeah, it's
it's
easier.
exhausting. And when I
Yeah.
made the decision, I just went, oh, I just feel so much better. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm still sad,
Yes.
but I've made the decision and I'm firm in that decision now, and I can see
Mhm.
I've got space to do something else now. So
So tell me, you might not have thought about this yet. I do because I'm a constant future thinker. But tell me, so if Cuba Street is closing its doors on the 23rd, I think it was on February, and that's gone, and then there'll be like a few months where there's probably a few bits of here, there, and everywhere that you've got to kind of sort out and finishing things. Tell me, 6 months time, what do you think your life looks like? Have
oh,
you done that?
I haven't thought about it too much because I think I'm very much like a
You've got to get through the next bit.
get through
Yeah.
the next bit. Like if there's a big event or a big thing
Yeah.
happening, I'm like, just need to plan for that
Yeah.
event. And then I'll start thinking about the next bit.
Yeah.
But I do feel very positive about it. I feel like I see some more space. I feel like I see there's going to be a lot more energy for me to focus on the Greytown store and making that really thrive. Because I feel like at the moment I'm kind of sub-thriving, you
Yeah,
know? I'm
I
like,
do know.
that
I
shop, yeah,
do
it's good,
know.
it's okay. And that shop, yeah, it's good, it's okay. But I wanna full ass the thing, you know?
Yeah, I do
I'm
get it. Yeah.
halving and I wanna full ass it. And so I see that there's gonna be a space for me to be able to grow Greytown and help nurture my team there. And also I see space for me to get back into making my jewelry, which is where I very first
Yeah,
started.
that's where you started, right? Like
Yeah,
that's originally what
yeah.
you did. So you'll be able
Yeah.
to build that again.
Yeah, to build that again. And because we've got the atelier at the store, the atelier, the workshops there. Um, I want to hold workshops there and teach people and do jewelry workshops
I
there and
love that. And
people
that's a
come in and
thing that Wellingtonians would come and do on a
yeah.
day or a visit. They'd come out and do that with you. Yeah.
And I want to nurture that side of things. So I want to get back into my creativity as well,
I love
because
it. I love
and
it.
that's tricky because I think a lot of creative business owners come in with the creativity. Maybe they're making their own product, they've got their own range, or they're doing something. They're like, I'll open a shop. Yeah,
Yeah.
let's open a shop. Why don't we open a
It
shop?
always
Let's
sounds like
open
a
a shop.
fun idea at the
And it
time.
is, and it's great, and I love it. I really do love customer service as well. So there was this real battle between like my creative self wanting to make jewelry and make the space, do all these pretty things and make like lovely things, between that and like my love for really good customer service and just really giving people a really good experience. And so I'm like, well, you can't always be on the floor, you can't always be there. So that's been quite tricky. That's been like a real butt head. So I'm really looking forward to seeing if I can make those two work together, where I'm being creative, but I'm also having the time I need in the customer service realm.
We work in completely different industries, but I will tell you it is 100% possible, because
Mm,
this was the struggle I had, and it was killing me. Like I literally felt like it was physically killing me.
mm, mm.
And I think people that don't have that creative surge don't understand it. But when you don't have time to invest in that creativity, everything else is a little bit grayer.
Yeah.
And you can be really sensible and professional and stuff and love lots of stuff about your job, but if you're not feeding that creativity, what I have done and what I encourage my clients to do is, if you've got that, you just build a life where you've got that day blocked, or you have to learn to really prioritize that time. But the
Mm.
business can be very vibrant if
Yes.
you do it, and I love that now. I
Mm,
and
mm,
one of my clients, who is like a weight loss coach, she now has 2 days for creativity in her week.
mm.
And I'm like, this is the thing. This is a good thing, no matter what the industry, to
Yeah.
feed your creative spirit and to grow. This is the age of the artist. We haven't had an age of the artist since, I don't know, the 13th century or something. Like there's been ages of it, but this is the new age of the artist.
Mm.
You need to feed it. And I love that you're doing that. I think that's so exciting. And I want to buy I want to buy a set of your earrings when,
We'll
you
make that
search.
happen, girl.
Yeah,
We'll make
yeah. Well, like just, make sure you put them on the website. Um,
it
it's been a huge pleasure having you on the podcast, and thank you for your openness about it. I'm really looking forward to sharing this with others, because I know this will be so helpful. If people want to buy from you, besides coming to Greytown, and they can obviously pop into Cuba Street before you close. And if you've been a customer of Madam Fancy Pants and haven't been there for a while, do go in. I mean, Claire might start to doubt when she starts having hordes of people, but she won't because she's made a decision. But do go in, clear out as much as the stuff that's in there as possible, so she doesn't have to shift it anywhere.
Oh yeah. We'll move the things, finding things, new homes.
Yeah, I should have worn them. I've got my favorite earrings, which I get compliments for all the time. My daughter bought them for me at Madam Fancy Pants. And I get stopped on the street for them.
Shut up.
I do. It's amazing. I'm everywhere. I went through. I had to fly to Christchurch earlier in the week, and I got stopped like by 4 people in security who wanted to ask me. And then I got one of the flight attendants actually went, "Oh my gosh, where'd you get those from?" So I know. So that's quality. But also, if they want to find you on the interwebs and have a look at what you've got, where would they find you?
So we're on all the social, well, not all of them actually. I lie. We are on the TikTok, but I can't deal with the TikTok.
I am going to get you to go onto the TikTok.
We're on Instagram, which I love, and you'll see my face on there probably quite frequently on stories. I jump on there.
And they're very funny posts as well about jokes. I'm always like, how'd you come up with that idea?
I love those. I mean, I know a lot of people use kind of like the meme text memes, but I just love them, and I think they just
love them.
Lightness to people's days because they're so relatable, and I'm like, this is it, this is me. Oh my god,
Yeah.
So balancing those, and I also like to think we balance that cuss and kind as well, where it's
I think you do. Yeah,
real, but it's also so important to be kind. So finding that beautiful balance between those two things. But yeah, on Instagram, just Madam Fancy Pants. On Facebook, Madam Fancy Pants NZ, and on our website, just madamfancypants.com or .co.nz.
Oh, both.
Yeah, we've got both. I tried to get MFP, but there's a guy out there. I've asked him so many times. If you're listening, guy that owns mfp.co.nz, please just sell it to me. You're not using it. Can I just have it?
Anyone knows who owns MFP? Could you let them know?
.co.nz, please.
Yeah.
And it's a very long name sometimes. I'm like, oh, it's a great name, but man, typing that or writing that.
You can Google it and it'll come up. It's in search. So you guys, Madam Fancy Pants, you'll know what it is. Yeah. It's been such a pleasure, Claire. Like I'm really pleased that you had the guts to show up today on of all days to come and do this topic, because I do think it's so important. So thank you so much. I know that that this has been something that people will feel. And if you're listening to this or you're reading the Stuff column and you want to say to Claire, hey, we love you, do send her a message because I'm sure she'd appreciate it, because it was a really beautiful message.
Thank you. And reach out if you want to have a corridor about some decisions. If you want to chat to me about it, then I'd be more than happy. Pop me a little DM or something. More than happy to just like nut it out. If you want to have a whinge or a rant, let's get it on, Yeah.
That's awesome. So thank you so much. Thank you so much for being part of the podcast. I really appreciate it. It's been a real pleasure.
Thanks for having me, Rachel.
As I alluded to in the podcast with Claire, who shared so generously, we had to have a major downsize, which I've talked about. I think episode 2 of Map It Marketing podcast talks about the story, and it's in my book, Be a Spider, Build a Web. And we had to have a major change, and I can say, 6 years past that, boy, am I glad we did it. If you're in a waiting place, if you're struggling, if you've come into 2023 tired again. Now, I spent 2 years being tired, 2021, 2022, and most of 2020, let's be honest. And I've come out of that. If I hadn't, we would need to make changes. And I did change my model. I changed the way we were doing things so that I could be released from that exhaustion. You need to have a business that isn't one that drains every part of joy and energy from your body. Your business should be something that you want to go to, that you want to grow, and that you're excited to be at. And if it's not like that and things aren't doing what they're meant to, then you need to make choices. Be proactive. Don't wait. Do what Claire has done and think about the choices. It doesn't have to be shutting something down. It might be altering something or moving completely away from it or changing something in it. But don't make it a passive choice. Be active and choose. I wasn't planning to have this podcast this week, but I felt this story was so important, and I hope you did too. If you want to talk about it and discuss some of the ideas in here, do come and be part of the Map It Marketing group on Facebook. And I'd love to hear from you too. You can drop me a line and rachel@identifymarketing.co.nz if you'd just like to tell me what you thought of this episode. I'll read everything you send, and I might send a brief reply, but I'll reply to anything that you write me around this topic too. So, I hope to hear from you, and I'll talk to you next week. If you love what you heard today, be sure to hit subscribe. And if you loved this episode in particular, I'd love it if you shared it on social media. Remember to tag me in so I can say thank you. Have a great week, and we'll talk soon.